My Blood, the Ink, Episode 1. A story worth telling.
When did you first know that magic was real? Was it in a book you read? Was it on a Christmas morning? Could it have been the moment your back hit a pile of golden leaves and you saw the fog of your breath rise in the air, dancing away from you as if it were your very spirit? Maybe it was on a summer night when the sun set the horizon on fire and your chest grew tight because you knew in that moment that anything was possible, that time was infinite, that the whole world was rising up to meet you, waiting for you, calling for you. You must remember. It's that feeling. The sense of expansion you feel in your body and unlocking in your mind. There's a sudden awareness of how vast and unknown the world around you is, and yet that vastness somehow sits in a space in your chest. There's joy in it. Awe, confusion, surrender, lust, impatience, so many feelings we often don't have the words for and are impossible to describe. But once we feel that strange, exhilarating combination of emotions, we notice the world around us with brand new eyes. Now, there are trolls in the garden, magical old men in the chimneys, monsters under the bed. I was still a child when I discovered magic was real. And unsurprisingly, it was my grandmother who tore the scales from my eyes. Danai Winston Taylor was a legend. She was a woman of devastating beauty and terrifying intelligence. She was the first woman CEO of the family shipping empire and the first black woman CEO in the tri-state area. She had 2 children, 3 degrees, and was 9 times married, though, according to her, she had only been in love thrice. When I probed the math of her romances, she explained,
I married twice for love, once for money, once out of boredom, twice for a lost bet, once for a bet I won, once to save money on import tariffs for lumber, and once to be petty with Dolores.
Who's Dolores?
The town clerk. She knows what she did, and she will be found wanting.
Sounds serious.
Bought a dress for her funeral a few months back. Had it custom made. The day she finally hugs the soil, I'll be there all dressed up in an emerald-wrapped dress. She hates emerald.
A story for another time. All those marriages leave you one short. What happened with number 9?
That one was complicated. I loved him. I really did. But I hate volcanoes. For that reason alone, it never would have worked.
Surprising literally everyone due to her legendary independence, once she retired, my grandmother decided to move into our home. I think normally Father would have protested, but she had left him the company, and he figured that as it was a problem that came with an expiration date, he could wait it out. She left her home to my aunt and let the family pick over most of her possessions before moving into our house with a few suitcases, a mountain of books, and her favorite armchair. And it was in that armchair that my life truly began. Day in and day out, I would sit on her lap and she would tell me story after story, stories about a life filled with dangers and adventures, stories of magic, folk tales epics, some that she claimed had happened to her or other members of our family going back centuries. That chair was my childhood. It was a ship on the high seas and a portal to the cosmos. Yet, as much as she shared with me, whether the stories were real or imagined, it always felt like there was even more she was withholding. She fed me breadcrumbs until I was starving. The day magic finally took hold in me was a day much like the others. So much so that to this day I'm not particularly sure what made it so special. We sat across from each other, her regal and wicked in her armchair, and me, wild and unkempt, studying the Senate game in front of us. The ancient Egyptian board game was one of our favorite pastimes. The board was a box made of dyed blue wood covered in a thin lacquered glaze, a little less than a foot long and no more than 4 inches wide. The sides were covered in 10 hieroglyphs, and on the top were carved 3 rows of 10 small squares.
You gonna move?
I'm concentrating.
On what? Drop them sticks and move your pieces, boy.
You're cheating.
Little boy, how am I cheating?
I don't know yet. That's why I'm concentrating.
Dante, this is a game of chance. You have 5 pieces. I have 5 pieces. You drop the sticks and move how much they tell you to move. You just moving your pieces from one end of the board to the other side. You're thinking too much.
Then why do you always win?
Maybe I'm just lucky. You ever think of that?
No one is that lucky. I'm missing something.
When they first played this game, it was just a simple pastime. Just like how we play chess or checkers or spades. But soon it evolved to represent how one's spirit moved through the afterlife. Some even began to refer to it as the game of death.
Is that why some of the spaces have those weird names?
Look here. This one is the House of Waters. It represents death and rebirth. The House of Beauty represents preparing oneself for death. The House of 2 Judges represents standing judgment for all that we've done in life. Here, the House of 3 Truths encompasses the fundamental truths of who we were and the releasing of all the secrets we kept. And the House of Second Life is about rebirth. At least that's what some folks think. There isn't much agreement because the rules have been lost to time.
So how do you know how to play? Is that how you were cheating?
Little boy, if you don't stop with this cheating nonsense, I know how to play because I stole the original rule book from a library.
Why'd you steal it? Whenever I go to the library, they always let me take things as long as I promise to bring them back.
And that's absolutely right. You should always bring them back. Unless it's too special to be there, and you think you can take better care of it. I trust your judgment. But this rule book wasn't in your usual library. This one was special. Come, let's go sit in my chair. We both know that I won anyway. Oh, boy. You are getting big.
No, I'm not.
You are. Soon I'll be sitting on your lap. Where was I?
The special library?
Oh, yes, the special library. For everything that exists in this world, there is an original. All the rest of us are descendants or mere copies of what came before. Distorted echoes of the original symphony of the universe. First, someone has an idea for something. And then the first of that thing is built, or made, or born, or created. And then everything else after that is just a replica of that first thing. That's true of this chair. That's true of me and you. And that's especially true of libraries. The first library, the true library, is where they keep a record of all the things. If it exists in the world, it exists in the library. If it stops existing in the world, it still exists in the library. But the library is so important and so powerful that if it stops existing in the library, then it's lost everywhere else, waiting to be discovered or created again. That's because the library holds the essence of things, the only perfect copy of the first of a thing to exist.
Where is it? Can we go visit?
That's the special part. In many ways, it's impossible to reach. You know how I told you that there's more than just one world? That there are many, many worlds that exist next to our own?
Yes.
Well, the library is the only thing that exists in all those worlds at once. Every world that exists comes together to form a ring, and at the center of that ring is the library. And because it touches every single world, it lives at the outskirts of all of them. That's why they call it the library at the edge of the world.
So how do we get there?
If I tell you, you have to promise not to tell anyone else, okay? Most people don't even know the library exists, let alone how to get there. Are you sure I can trust you?
Grandma, yes. You can trust me. I cross my heart.
Well, okay then. Every library in the world is a copy of that first library. All libraries have a connection, a thin, tiny thread that bonds them all to that library. And that means every library is a portal to the library at the edge of the world.
Like that really big one we saw in New York?
Yes.
Even the one at school?
Even that one.
What about the one in the grocery store?
That's an aisle, baby, not a library.
Oh, yeah. But how do you get from a library to the library?
Well, there's a book that exists in every library. No matter what language is spoken, no matter how big or small the library, that book is always there. But it only shows itself to those who believe, those who are looking for it, those who know beyond a shadow of a doubt that magic exists all around them. When you find that book, you turn to page 77, and instead of reading, you tell the book the best story you know. If it accepts it, it pulls you in and spits you right out into the library at the edge of the world.
And that was the moment. As she spoke, I saw myself at the library just a few blocks down the road. I saw myself tucked away in a quiet row of books far away from the noise and bodies that filled the space. I saw myself holding a worn book with gilded pages bare on the front and filled to the brim with stories. I saw myself reading into it, fervently whispering words I caressed from the loom of my imagination and woven into a majestic tapestry of a story. I then watch as the book accepts my tale and wraps me in a galaxy of shimmering stars, pulling me into its pages and guiding me into the greatest repository of knowledge to have ever existed. On that day, she ignited in me a voracity for stories and a deep-seated yearning for magic. After that, I began to have my own adventures, filling my cup with all manner of experiences that I could draw from in order to tell my own amazing story that would gain me access to the library at the edge of the world. I would practice these tales on my grandmother, watching every nuance of her body to ensure that I had caught her attention, that I held her in the palm of my hand the way she so frequently did me. Some days, when I'd finish a tale, she would grow misty and pull me into her and rock me back and forth in her chair, whispering to me that I possess gifts that would take me to places I could never imagine if only I used my brain, if only I believed ferociously. So when I wasn't weaving tales, I was searching desperately for magic. I was sure that it existed, and I just wanted to taste it, one tiny morsel of it, or somehow glimpse just a hint of a world I could feel, but not see. But no matter how many years passed, no matter how much I tried, I found nothing but the cold, hard world of the mundane. By the time I became a teenager, I figured that my grandmother had been wrong about me, that I possessed none of the intelligence, creativity, or courage necessary to uphold her fantastical legacy. And then, when I was 17, I learned that I hadn't been the problem at all. I hadn't failed, and I wasn't lacking magic, as I learned one horrific night, wasn't real. And my hero, an idol, deserved to be neither, as she was in fact a liar, peddling falsehoods at me like a charlatan preacher does his flock, and I had, like a fool, lapped it all up. I had craved it, built my life around it, crawled into her lap and begged for the deceit that would shape me. Trolls in the garden? Magical old men and chimneys, do you know what I found when I finally grew up and looked under the bed? Dust. After the truth of my grandmother was exposed, I promised that I would never be so foolish ever again, and that it was time to leave childish things in the past. So soon after, I hauled my chest of books up to the attic under lock and key, and the gray dust and grime that built upon them soon fell like a film over my life. But magic would not go quietly into the night.
Are you ready for this?
Nico, we've been planning this for months. We've got this.
Okay. But you have the most dangerous job.
Listen, at best, our plan works. At worst, we get some cool story potential.
I don't know why I bother worrying.
It's the thought that counts. Now, run along. He'll be here soon.
Wait a second. How are you?
I'm fine.
No, how are you?
Now? You're trying to have this conversation right now?
This isn't the first time I've tried to talk with you about this. You've been through something really traumatic, and we've barely discussed it.
Did you ever think that maybe the best way for me to get over it is to leave it behind me?
Dante, it was your grandmother.
Please, not right now. You've masterminded this great plan.
You helped.
I did help, thank you.
I know you were fishing.
I knew that you knew I was fishing, and the fact that you still let me have that is why you're my best friend in the world.
I'm a wonderful friend.
The very best. Now, we are literally in the middle of something we have both worked very hard on, and I don't want to be thrown off my game in the last 5 seconds and ruin everything we've planned.
Fine. I'll drop it for now, but I'm on to you. You play it cool, but you're a vault when it comes to the messy things.
Because the mess is mine.
No, the mess is ours. Would we even be doing what we're about to do if you didn't make my mess yours?
You're being really dramatic right now.
I'm not. I'm just right. I've been letting you get away with things for too long. But I'm gonna work on that.
Work on it later, please.
I get it. I'm leaving. Audere es facere.
So we dare.
And so we do.
I love you.
I love you too. Good luck.
Right back at you. Now scram.
Dante!
And here we go.
Dante!
Hello, Brennan. What can I do for you?
What did you do?
I have to say, I generally have no clue what you're talking about. What happened?
Don't play dumb, Taylor. I know you called my father and lied about me. What did you think was going to happen? All you did was piss him off, which just pissed me off. We both know that I could do whatever I want to you, and the school won't give a flying fuck because my family has given them so much money for the past century that the name McPherson should be carved into every fucking brick that holds this place up. If you thought things were bad before, you and that friend of yours better get ready for a fresh hell every single day, because when I'm done with you...
Okay, the villain rant is going on a bit long. Firstly, I just want to say again that I have no clue what you're talking about.
I know you're fucking...
But if I did know what you were talking about, I'd clarify that I did not call your father. I spoke with the man running against your father in the tightest primary he's been in since he got elected. And then I'd add that after I spoke with that opponent, I may have also sent him a letter signed by 63 of the students here attesting to your habits as a sadistic, bullying asshole. Now, of course, a grown adult can't be seen running a campaign that attacks his opponent's child. But maybe that opponent has press contacts, and maybe that letter somehow found its way onto the desk of a certain reporter who felt it was their duty to report on the fact that the man running on change, compassion, and family values somehow raised a child with a prolific penchant for cruelty. And maybe the timing of all this ensures that it all comes to light a week before the primary election, before your father might have a chance to recover in the polls.
Oh,
now, before you hit me, and honestly, you should be thinking of changing that behavior up in light of your current circumstances, did you know that on Tuesdays in the fall, much like today, the local women's knitting club likes to host picnic lunches near the bench on our quad? Look, there they are. Let's wave. Hello, ladies. Now, while the school may not give a flying fuck, I think even they would be hard-pressed to ignore a group of concerned knitters just overcome with shock at witnessing you beating up a kid right in front of them. Especially considering that you sound so much like that boy they just read about in the paper.
fine. Maybe I wait a little before I end you. Maybe it'll be on your way home. Maybe it'll be in the hallways. You won't ever know when it's coming, but I can promise you, a group of old ladies won't always be around to protect you.
Sure. So right now, the headmaster's checking your locker after receiving an anonymous tip. And the eagle that normally sits on his desk, you know, the one that's been in his family for generations and went missing about a week ago, it will be found right there. And before you ask, your best friends already gave us your combination.
They wouldn't do that. They know better.
No? Well, Nico promised Richard that he would give him the answers for Mr. Johnson's history final, and Tom made us promise to throw next week's water polo game against his team.
I should have known this was you and him. Seems like the last conversation I had with him didn't stick.
I've had a rough few months. I honestly haven't cared about much, and I would have ignored all the shit you've done just like I have for the last few years. But then I saw Nico trying to hide his bruises from me. Bruises you gave him, and all of a sudden I can feel again. And I don't get all the feelings back. I still can't quite grasp the full range, but I do feel rage. Because he is my friend. And that actually means something. He's not a lackey or some prop I use. He's someone I care about. You just use people. And people will only let themselves be used as long as they get something in return. But the tides have turned against you, Brennan. You are dead in the water, and everybody's ready to run.
You really think this is over? You think you've done something here?
I think Between costing your father an election, the bad publicity for the school, the personal slighting of our headmaster, and the signed statement of 63 students, you might be looking at military school, some boarding school in Sweden for teenage psychopaths, or whatever place your parents find to dump you. But I hope that when you're there, surrounded by criminally insane assholes that make you look like motherfucking Teresa by comparison, that you remember that your best friends in the world sold you out over a test and a wet volleyball because you were just that much of a shitty person. But of course, that's if I knew what you were talking about.
This isn't over. No matter where I end up, I'm going to dream of ways to ruin your life. And I'm not talking kicking you out of school. I mean something with stakes. Something that will change the course of your fucking life. Nothing and no one will be off limits. Destroying you will be my life's work.
Well, good luck with that. In a year, I won't remember who you are.
Oh, remember this.
Well, that was impressive.
Didn't know I had an audience. Care to show yourself?
Look up. A little lower. Ah, you are looking right at me.
I am staring at a tree, a weirdly big spider, and some dirt. Not a person in sight, so unless trees have suddenly developed personalities and speaking skills while the rest of us weren't paying attention, then...
So much skepticism. Moses talks to a burning bush and no one bats an eye. But here I am, trying to give you a compliment and it is an issue. Honestly, Dante, I thought you would have a bit more imagination.
Okay, Nico. I don't know when you got good at accents, but I'm leaving now.
Are you sure you do not want to stay? I have been told I am a great conversationalist.
Very sure. Thank you.
If you insist. I guess you weren't trying to get to the library at the edge of the world, after all.
What did you just say?
You heard me.
Wait. Are you the spider? You're a talking spider. This can't be real.
I think it is time we put some cards on the table. I was a bit dishonest before.
About being a tree?
No, that was an assumption you made. The dishonesty was that no one has ever actually told me that I am a great conversationalist. It has always been implied, but no one has ever said it outright. And yes, I am a spider, not a tree. Just to be clear.
What is happening?
Whatever will we do with you, Dante? You would be perfect in so many ways. You know most of the steps, but you just won't dance. Maybe it is too soon. In that case...
Ow! Just bit me!
I will see you later, Dante. Or never again. Whichever comes first. I only have one request for you. Find a story worth telling. Farewell.
I feel a splintering in my chest. It's as if my lungs are the door in an old cabin that had been haphazardly boarded up with juxtaposing planks of wood, and someone had just torn a plank down, letting in a sliver of blazing light into a dusty room that hadn't seen the sun in years. I stare down at the bite on my hand, and while I feel no pain, I watch thin tendrils of shadow escape from the wound and wrap themselves around my arm before disappearing under my skin. The bite itself shrinks until all that remains are 2 small black dots. If I had known better, I would have simply thought them to be small birthmarks. What is happening? The mounting feeling I've been ignoring grows, and suddenly, my very skin is aflame, and I am breathless. My last intake of air is a swirling vortex in my lungs, begging and pleading for escape, and when at last I recall how to breathe, I can hear the sound of tearing as the veil between my world and the world I had been searching so desperately for finally, blessedly gives way. I had found my morsel. I had gotten my glimpse. Magic was real. Yes, she had lied, but maybe not about everything. And so, my quest began again. I would find my stories. I would have my adventures, and this time I wouldn't wait for her approval. I would be my own judge and my own captain. I would discover for myself the world she had tainted and restore its pristine nature. What you are about to read is the sum total of my life's work. My blood, the ink, and my sweat, the glue that binds these pages together. These are the stories that have shaped my life. These are the narratives that have changed me, moved me, the tales that have intricately woven me into the fabric of a tapestry I could never fully understand or imagine. I know what it's like to have doubts. I know that you've probably buried your belief of the fantastic beneath cynicism and pain and frustration and loss and despair. I know that sometimes it feels like the world does all it can to smother the flames of your innocence and kidnap your curiosity. But please, hear me. While we change, while the world changes, magic does not. It's still right there, waiting for us, praying for us to see it again, to hold it, explore it, dance with it, and be held by it. It wants to save us. It wants to whisk us away. If you are listening to this, and I hope with all of me that you are, then you have chosen to be part of the elusive tribe of wanderers and adventurers that yearn for the world to open up to them in the fullness of its glory. It means that you are driven by the pursuit of some greater knowledge, that you honor all creatures and react first with wonder instead of fear when confronted with the unknown. As you listen to my story, more than anything else, I want you to know and remember this, even and most especially on your darkest and most trying days. Magic is real. It's yours. And it always has been. Signed, Dante Monroe, Winston Taylor. Death Scribe, Head of the Spider, the one who weaves. My Blood, the Ink is a production of Akeem's Alchemy. Episode 1, A Story Worth Telling, was written and directed by J.Cottle. It features original compositions by Miguel Landestoy, sound design by Anna Drummond, studio engineering by Tom Nikiper, and editing by Lucy Little. This episode featured J.Cottle as Dante, Sakia as Danai Winston Taylor, Mika Rose as Nico, Jude Torres as Brennan, and Digi K as Spider. My Blood the Ink is executive produced by Jasmine Garcia, J.Cottle, and Akeem's Alchemy. For more information on My Blood the Ink and Akeem's Alchemy, visit us on Instagram at Akeem's Alchemy or visit our website at akeemsalchemy.com. Remember, no matter how dark it gets, Yours is a life worth living and a story worth telling. Until next time.